inside you is a guidance system which is more powerful than any book that you can read or little movie clip that you can watch on your mobile phone. It's going to teach you everything that you need to know about how to navigate life consciously and to create whatever it is that you need on the journey. It won't cost you a penny. And all you actually need to do is create time and space in your life to actually start connecting with it. So my talk is called 10 Questions I Asked the Ocean. And it's really my own exploration into this space that I actually want to share with you. The journey begins in 1996. At the time I was working in advertising, I was in London. And I was working for a couple of big ad agencies. I was, on the surface level of life, everything was going really well. I was producing ad campaigns for big global brands like Mercedes-Benz and Harley-Davidson. I was around some really cool and talented people. But there was something underneath that was missing. There was something, and the best way I can actually describe it of what was missing is I was aware that there was something going on. And the best description I can actually give is that it was like a distant rumbling of a thundercloud. It was beyond the horizon. I couldn't see it. I could hear it very subtly, but I wasn't actually able to kind of pinpoint what was going on and what it actually was. And so I asked the ocean, where do I begin? And she said to me, become self-reflective. There's an aspect of our mind called the observer, which enables us to witness the ongoing thought stream that's passing through the mind in any given moment. You may be aware of it in your own mind right now. You have your thoughts, and then you have the observer of the thoughts. So, where do I begin? Become self-reflective. Question number 2 came along. Okay, it's this concept of self-reflection. What am I going to reflect on? Where do I go with this? And the ocean said to me, daily experiences. If you become conscious of what is emerging in front of your nose, you become aware of actually what's going on around you. And as I learned, everything that I have thought or said or done in the past has impacted getting me into the room today. And that's interesting in itself, because it enables me to understand where I've come from. But that's not the full story. Perhaps of greater interest to me was this concept of if I become aware of my present moment and what's actually happening, I'm going to start getting clues about what I'm causing and creating in the world out there. How am I impacting and affecting my future? Now, the interesting thing about self-reflection is it's nothing special. It's nothing special. There's 7 billion human beings on the planet today, and we all have the same capability. But the interesting thing with it is that the more you use it, it's a little bit like a muscle if you go to a gym. The more you use it, the more powerful it becomes. And so the journey continued. I spent 25 years living in the UK, and I've spent the best part of 15 years living in Australia. So I've experienced 2 great national cultures. And it's interesting when you actually observe the power of language and how that informs our individual experience. And then you look at the cultural norms that exist in regards to the common phrases and common sayings which are going on. If you ask an Australian, how are you? Very often you'll hear, all good, mate. You'll probably say it several times a day. You ask an Englishman, how are you? And you often hear, not too bad. One's a double negative, the other's a double positive. I've got to be very careful because there's probably a lot of English people in the audience here today. I don't know where this is going as well. So the interesting thing is that whereas I don't advocate tarring a whole nation with the same brush because like Brian said on Life of Brian, we're all individuals. And we are. We're all individuals. But the interesting thing is that culture does inform our individual experience. So I wanted to know, is life all good or not too bad? These 2 great cultures that impacted me. The ocean said, observe the honesty of waves. The peak of the wave and the trough of the wave are interdependent. You cannot get rid of one without the other. They coexist. They are mutually interconnected. It's like, interesting. Observe the honesty of waves. I spent many years of my life trying to create more of the all good by getting rid of and eliminating everything which I would say is not too bad. It doesn't work. I learned that the hard way. Because whatever we push against, we interestingly actually create more of. I want to share my second worst not too bad day. It's the 8th of May, 1999. And I was living in Putney at the time and used to ride my motorbike across Putney Bridge up to Leicester Square, to where I worked. Somebody did a U-turn across a double white line on a bridge crossing the River Thames. knocked me off my motorbike. I don't remember a huge amount about this day, but what I can tell you is when I kind of came to, my bike was 200 meters down the road, wrapped around a lamppost, and I was about 2 or 3 meters from going under a 22 double-decker bus. Not the best day. It wasn't the worst one, though. It wasn't the worst one. That happened 8 days earlier. My worst not too bad day happened on the 30th of April, 1999. My 25th birthday party was meant to happen in a bar in Dean Street in Soho called the Blues Bar. And I'm sat there at 6:30 with about 2 or 3 of my friends and 50 more coming, and a nail bomb went off around the corner. 50 meters around the corner, literally, walk out the bar, end of the road, do a right, and poof, this huge explosion went. Very sad day. 3 people died that night. 70 were injured. It was in a pub called the Admiral Duncan. And those kind of 2 experiences across those 8 days had, as you can imagine, a pretty big impact on me. They triggered the next question. If I can't get rid of the not too bad days, how am I going to manage them? How am I going to manage them? Because if you push against them, you create more of them. Ocean said, leverage the bottom turn. Watch your surfer take off, come down the face of the wave, and then push hard to get back up onto the wave again, leveraging the bottom turn. Those 8 days taught me about the power of adversity, and how when we're actually facing some of our greatest challenges in life, what is interesting is there is an interconnection between the adversity and then the actual potential that's going to come out of that adversity. And we can either get smashed by the wave and get pulled under and kind of, get kind of wiped out by the wave, or we can learn how to get back up onto our feet. And so I took the second option. How do I get back up onto my feet? And I've been backpacking in Australia in sort of 2021. You can only get 1 visa at the time. I was 25. So I wanted to be back in Australia. And the only way I was going to make that happen was to get on a plane and actually get over here and see if I can find myself a job and see if I could get sponsorship. So I got on a plane from Manchester Airport with a backpack and a 3-month holiday visa and a few $1,000s in the bank with this very strong intention. I'm going to leverage the adversity. I'm going to make this intention happen. I got a job within a week of being here. I got sponsored within 2 weeks of being here, and within 4 weeks of being here, I was renting a unit in the Big Blue building in Manly. And so I think that year taught me about the power of adversity. And I guess one of my concerns around where we're heading, there's a lot of beautiful work out there. There's a lot of work emerging around positive psychology, around happiness, around a movement for us to find joy within. And I think there's a deeper truth. I see in certain circles in my work how it can sometimes be misinterpreted in that we have to have the all good all of the time. And it worries me. It worries me about our children. I've got 2 young kids. I've got a beautiful 4.5 and 2.5-year-old. And my intention is to try to teach them about both, because I think we need to have a healthy balance. If we try to eradicate the not too bad, well, I learned the hard way. It doesn't work. So I got over to Australia 6 months before the Olympics. Happy as. Awesome. And what I realized is actually people in Australia have not too bad days as well, despite what the culture says. So my next question was, how do I focus my mind? That's what I wanted to know about. And there's a great story about a Zen teacher. And the student comes to the teacher and he says, "Master, will you teach me?" And he says, "Sure, but first, let's have a cup of tea." So he starts pouring the cup of tea into the cup. And he keeps pouring and he keeps pouring and he keeps pouring until the cup overflows. And the student goes, "Master, stop. The cup is overflowing." At which point the master stares him squarely in the eyes. And he says, "This cup is like your mind. It's too full. Until you empty your mind, I cannot teach you anything." Now, I've been meditating for 12 years, pretty much every day. And it's quite hard to stand up on stage and share a deep experience of my consciousness, but I'm going to give it my best shot. If I have a full mind, the best thinking process I have to navigate through life is a rational mind. We've all got it. The pros and cons, the for, the against, like, don't like. Deep inside consciousness, inside me, there's a whole new kind of like tool that turns on. And the best way I can describe it is the solution and the problem are actually interconnected. It's a little bit like the face of the wave. You take a challenge into meditation, and very often there's a solution that pops up that doesn't come from anywhere that I can fully explain, other than the fact to say that there's this deep knowingness that it's the right way to move forward. I've been using this in my life for several years. I want to share a little bit about how I'm using it. Around about the same time, I was doing some self-development work. And the next question of what's my purpose got answered pretty quickly on a weekend. I was ready to leave advertising. I was searching for something a little bit more. And so the what's my purpose question was answered pretty quickly over the course of a weekend. It's time to get out of advertising and go and train as a coach and a facilitator. That was 2003, so I've been on a very interesting journey. For anybody out there who kind of picking up from the personal brand from our previous speaker, Rebecca, that's kind of interested in looking into this space, the purpose exists underneath you. You've just got to kind of delve in a little bit. And very often my observation is that there's something inside that wants to get out. There's something within all of us, everybody in the room and anyone else that's watching, that actually wants to express itself. It's like an innate urge that wants to kind of get out. You've got to go inside and figure out what it is. Here's an interesting story. 2005, I started to play around with meditation. And that was when question 7 tapped me on the shoulder. And there were 3 things going on in my life at the time. First of all, I was ready to meet my soulmate. Secondly, I was playing around with visualization. There's a whole lot of movies out at the time around the power of visualization. And thirdly, I was reading about the interconnectedness of life, of people, of humanity, of the whole experience around us. And there's a few principles that I uncovered in my research a few years ago. Probably the biggest one is the one of unity. We are all interconnected. How do I find my soulmate? The answer came one rainy day. 2 drops in the same ocean. And so I started visualizing and imagining being with my soulmate. And then I joined up to RSVP. 1,000 matches came back in the first searches. Like, that stuff's meant to be easy. So I spent an afternoon filtering it down to around about 20. And on that 20, there was one person that was a beautiful beacon of white light shining at me. She's going, pick me. So I did, and I emailed her. We caught up for a couple of beers one early evening in beginning of April. And I can only describe that experience as something that felt like it only existed in Hollywood. We both knew that day we were off the market. Both knew we were off the market. It was amazing. And so it blew my mind in terms of a number of different things. First of all, I'd met the love of my life, and she's here in the audience today. And secondly, it actually taught me that everything is interconnected, and that this concept of 2 drops in the same ocean, whatever it is we're trying to create in our lives, whatever it is we feel drawn to get involved with and actually play a part in, and whatever people we're actually wanting to meet, they're out there wanting to meet you as well. It's interesting. So it kind of blew me away, this concept of visualization and the interconnectedness of reality and how it's possible for something which you would think as being really hard, I'm going to meet my soulmate, it was effortlessly. There was no effort involved. It taught me that grace is everywhere. So relationships are interesting things. Nobody ever says when you leave school you get your HSC. And nobody ever gives you this handbook. Hey, quick word in the ear. This is a book on how you navigate relationships. So I asked the ocean, how do we coexist in harmony? And she said, Rips will give you 4 choices. Choose consciously. The first one is I want to get to the lineup. I'm going to paddle out. I'm going to go with the flow. It's useful certain times. It's like go with the flow in the relationship. There's other times where relationships are dangerous. I've had a few business relationships in the last few years that are dangerous. You've got to get out the rip, paddle out the rip. Dangerous. Third one, when my needs are more important than the needs of the relationship, and I have a belief that I have to actually push forward in something, I have to paddle against it and have to get back to the shore. Now that's tiring. I spent many years doing that, probably as the main choice of those 4 choices. It's tiring. 4th choice is drown. And I'm not really sure that that's a good choice anyway. Probably at the heart of the work I do and what I'm most interested in and most passionate about is human evolution. It's great to see the previous talk in regards to where we've come from, how some of our ancestors have impacted our experience today and where we're at. Very interesting times. Huge volume of change on the planet. All of my clients are talking about two things. First of all, the hamster wheel is spinning faster than ever before. You've probably noticed that in your own life. Secondly, uncertainty is now the norm. And if anyone's got certainty about where they're going to be in 12 months or 2 years or 5 years, I certainly don't. I've got ideas, but I don't. And I think what's interesting about times of massive change, and this isn't just in Manly, this is global change, they cause humans to take a step back and go, maybe I need to find some new ways of being. Maybe I need to find, maybe the old ways of being aren't working that well anymore. Maybe we need to actually take a step back and have some paradigm shifts and this kind of thing. So I've been playing around in this space of evolution for a long time. And the concept of the trapped water bubbles, what's really interesting if you watch a trapped water bubble wanting to get to the surface, is that it has a power all of its own. It doesn't need a carrot and stick motivator to go, come on, up to the surface. It doesn't need that. It has a power all of its own. And if I speak to you about my own experience, about my own journey of evolving and learning more about these deeper capacities of the human experience, what I can actually share with you is there's something very deep inside me that has wanted to get out from all along. Like, you can call it purpose, you can call it mission, whatever you want to call it your values. But it's like it wants to get out of us. So for me, it's about honoring emerging potentials. When I'm working with people, I don't go in there and say, this is what you should do. I go in and listen to people, and I see what's emerging. And we try to allow it to bubble up and see where it goes. I want to tell you a story that started about a conversation that probably started about 2.5 years ago with a client of mine who's also a very good friend now. And it went something like this. I'm not happy in my work. Why? Well, I like the line of work I'm in, but the culture sucks. Okay, what do you want to do about it? She said, well, what I really want to do about it is actually want to build a community of conscious people on the northern beaches. Awesome. What's it going to take to make it happen? So I feel a great, tremendous level of, find the right words here, respect and awe and gratitude for being here today. Really appreciate you listening. Thank you very much.